Good morning, everyone. Thank you all for joining us today in the middle of National Accessibility Week for our webinar, Inclusive Employment is Good Business. My name is Siobhan, and I am part of the Ready, Willing, and Able, or RWA, Inclusive Employment Initiative here in Ontario. Joining me today are my two colleagues, Maggie and Jackie, who you will hear from as we go. Our webinar is being co-hosted by RWA and Community Living Ontario. So thank you to all involved for support in putting this together. Today's webinar is intended to highlight the benefits of an inclusive workforce and to provide you with an overview on how RWA can support your business. To showcase inclusive employment in action, we are joined today by our panelists who will be providing you their perspective on inclusive hiring. You will hear from two employers, Carol Mendoza, Manager of Inclusion at Deloitte Canada, and Nicole Mumford, CEO of Airgate Technologies, Inc., along with one of Nicole's employees, Cloud Services Engineer, Alex Mandel. Our panelists will be sharing their experiences working with RWA and their views on inclusion in the workforce. They will also be taking questions from our audience. So please submit your questions and comments at any point using the little chat box there, and our moderator will add them to the queue for the panelist discussion. Since we're all at home right now, we just want to apologize if any pets or family members appear on your screens. So thank you all for bearing with us, and thank you again for joining us today. So let's begin with an overview of the RWA initiative. So RWA in Ontario is we are a national inclusive business support initiative funded by the Government of Canada and operating in every province and territory. Across the country, RWA is hosted and delivered by unique organizations. So in Ontario, RWA is co-delivered by Community Living Ontario and Carey's Place Autism Services. These partnerships help reflect and advance the labor force participation of job seekers who identify as living with autism spectrum disorder or intellectual disability. This represents the two disability communities that we serve. As a national initiative, we are able to support employers who are hiring in multiple offices and locations by connecting to other RWA staff across Canada. Ready, Willing, and Able support. RWA provides four main services, all at no cost to our employee partners. Support pre-hire and recruitment, onboarding and retention, and education and training. Pre-hire supports consist of helping to identify and break down any barriers to employment, which are often unintentional. These include writing clear and concise job descriptions that match the role and the desired outcomes for the position, interview guidance that allows the candidate to showcase their skills, navigating the challenges of online application portals and screening measures, among others. For recruitment, we directly provide you access to qualified and available candidates looking for work. Contact is maintained from all steps from the interview to onboarding to make sure your new employee is set up for success. Retention. RWA ensures that on-the-job supports are available for employees in our network to make sure they have the tools they need to be successful. Communication is maintained to help your employee adapt to changing scenarios in the workforce and ensure appropriate supports are always in place. Finally, for education and training, RWA provides ongoing resources and information on accessibility and awareness in the workplace, tailored to the unique needs of your company, and can build upon any of the topics that we cover here today. This can include any of the pre-hire measures that I mentioned before, to learning about the characteristics of autism and intellectual disabilities in the workplace, communication strategies and performance measure guidelines for interacting with and evaluating your new employee. We also offer a free 5-part e-learning series, RWA Works, that is available to anyone interested through our website. And now over to Maggie to continue.
Thanks, Siobhan. So we just wanted to define some commonly used terms that you might hear us say today. So first off, we would like to define diversity. So diversity is a variation in personal, physical, developmental, or social characteristics such as gender, ethnicity, age, and education. And what is inclusion? Inclusion is procedures that organizations implement to integrate everyone in the workplace, allowing their differences to coexist in a mutually beneficial way. So a great example to explain the difference is diversity is being invited to the party and inclusion is being asked to dance. So RWA supports businesses to foster inclusion. Inclusive employment or inclusive employer are terms we commonly use when describing a workplace or position in which an individual with a disability is working alongside his or her peers without a disability in the competitive labor market. Inclusive hiring we use to describe the recruitment process that is flexible and accommodating to people with varying disabilities. And the last term we wanted to define is neurodiversity. Neurodiversity is a concept where neurological differences are recognized and respected as any other human variation. These differences can include, but are not limited to, people with dyslexia, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, and autism spectrum disorder. It's a term to describe people whose brains are wired a little bit differently. We polled businesses who have hired through RWA in the past, and we'd like to share some of these stats with you today. So 88% of businesses rated employees hired through RWA as well as or better than average on contributing to the firm's profit margin. And this truly is the messaging we want to get across. This isn't a charity thing. It is a proven fact that hiring inclusively will have business benefits. Compared to their colleagues, 94% of persons hired through RWA rated better than average on punctuality, and 95% of persons hired through RWA rated better than average on attendance and use of sick days. These numbers reflect that many of the people in our network are hardworking people who are eager to work and be contributing members of society. On average, they show up early or on time, they don't call in sick, and in many cases, they stay with that company for a very long time, which we all know turnover is a very costly issue for many businesses. Businesses rated employees hired through RWA as well as or better than average on their contribution toward a positive workplace morale at 99%, and their attitude toward their work at 99%, and getting along with customers and clients at 90%. The last stat I'll share today is 92% of businesses rated their overall experience with RWA as good or excellent. So we've made quite a positive impact on many businesses, their team morale, their bottom line, their customer loyalty, to name a few things, and we hope to continue to do this work with new partners going forward. So here's a quick video we'd like to share on inclusive hiring and performance. And just as a heads up, if you're wearing headphones, just be mindful of your volume because I don't want to blow anybody's eardrums.
Compared to their colleagues, 86% of people with a disability rate average or better on attendance. 98% of people with a disability rate average or better in work safety. Focus on ability, and you'll find unique strengths and talents that exceed expectations. In today's global economy, performance matters. Successful businesses build teams of employees who are loyal and reliable. Ready, Willing, and Able helps you hire the best candidates to get the job done.
Thanks, Maggie. So now we are going to be moving on to the panel portion of our webinar. I'm going to introduce each panelist and give them a bit of time to explain their relationship to Ready, Willing, and Able. After this, we will move on to panel question portion of the webinar. We encourage everyone to ask any questions that you may have for the panelists or for Ready, Willing, and Able in the chat box that you should see on your screen. So the first member of our panel is Carol Mendoza. Carol has been a champion of diversity and inclusion throughout her career. In her current role at Deloitte Canada, Carol leads a special project around inclusion within the Office of the General Counsel, with a dual focus on accessibility and the Indigenous space. Carol's professional background includes management consulting, focusing primarily on business development for international small to medium-sized businesses to expand to the North American market. She has also worked for international development charities with programs focusing on education, water, health, food and economic opportunity. At Deloitte, Carol has worked in risk management, compliance, process management, and employee engagement. In addition to her work on accessible employment programs within Deloitte, she also provides advisory services to external clients. She was previously the national leader of the Accessibility Employee Resource Group for Deloitte Canada. Carol represents Deloitte as a member of the Employee Partnership Table, a group formed to advise the Ontario government on innovative ways to connect more people with disabilities to jobs. She is a frequent speaker and panelist at events related to accessibility. Outside of work, Carol is an active volunteer. She sits on an advisory committee for the Information and Communication Technology Council, focused on employment for Albertans with disabilities, and actively serves as a mentor for the Toronto Regional Immigration Employment Council. Carol is a champion for the Ready, Willing, and Able initiative within Deloitte across Canada. Carol has worked to support teams across Deloitte in connecting to job seekers within the RWA network and to hire those individuals. She works tirelessly to advocate for inclusion and is always striving to further her goals and to improve diversity and inclusion within Deloitte. So Carol, can you please share your experience within Deloitte hiring individuals with ASD, autism spectrum disorder, or an intellectual disability and working with Ready, Willing, and Able?
Absolutely. Thank you so much for that introduction. I apologize I gave you such a long biography. Hello everyone, my name is Carol Mendoza. As she mentioned, I work as a manager of inclusion within Deloitte. I have a focus on accessibility, and I can talk a little bit just quickly about my role within accessibility. So I cover quite a few things around that area, whether that be employment programs, so hiring as well as retention with our talent teams, as well as enhancing day-to-day accessibility. So that's focused on technology, infrastructure, workplace accommodations, compliance, as well as really providing that education and awareness, which I work with Ready, Willing, and Able to do so across Deloitte Canada. And another component is working with our clients as well as leaders to really promote inclusive hiring, which is something that is very important for us to do as an organization, as well as a personal passion of mine. So we've had a national partnership with Ready, Willing, and Able for approximately 3 years now, I would say. It's been quite a while, and our partnership is national, so it's spanned across Canada. Ready, Willing, and Able has been an incredible organization for us to be able to support our employees in terms of hiring people with intellectual disabilities as well as autism spectrum disorder. And that ranges from providing awareness training, really providing that ongoing support to our staff, which is incredibly important, and also the hiring process, so providing interview tips and tricks, those kind of things that are really important for our organization to be able to move forward. I think, and I might talk about this a little bit later, but the most difficult part for organizations, I believe, is where to start hiring, how can you start hiring people with disabilities, and I think Ready, Willing, and Able has been a huge component in that factor, being able to move us forward and providing that education awareness to our current champions who are looking to hire, and moving that process along to be able to hire individuals on the spectrum or with intellectual disabilities. So we've hired quite a few individuals within our organization, and we hope to continue to do so more. And at this point, it's been really positive in the process, and we continue to further that journey as well.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Carol. That's great.
Thanks.
So next up, our next panelist is Nicole Mumford. Nicole has over 22 years experience as a technology thought leader. She is an industry executive who began her career working hands-on with Microsoft technologies, followed by extensive experience in advanced networking and security platforms. In 2014, she co-founded Airgate to bring cloud-first digital transformation solutions to enterprises everywhere. Her deep technical experience, expertise, high energy, and strategic thinking fuels her passion in delivering exceptional, disruptive solutions for enterprises. Her pragmatic creativity and energy for building solutions that deliver beneficial, transformative, human impact is boundless. Nicole's commitment to being a proactive ally for diversity, neurodiversity, and inclusion drives her focus on building a culture where everyone can achieve their true potential. Nicole will demonstrate how neurodiversity contributes significantly to successful business outcomes and team culture. With a hiring practice focused on individuals with autism spectrum disorder, Airgate has built a culture and consulting and service practice for cloud infrastructure, AI, and data that is driving uniquely different value for customers, employees, and partners and stakeholders alike. Nicole is passionate about inclusion and has built a diverse and inclusive team as a result. She's a champion for inclusion and continues to be a leader in inclusive employment in the technology sector. I'm confident that you will enjoy hearing Nicole's passion for inclusion and the value it has brought to her team. Nicole, can you share a bit about your experience hiring inclusively and working with Ready, Willing, and Able?
Yeah, thanks, Jackie, and thanks for having us here today. So, we deliberately set out to build an organization that was inclusion focused from the very beginning. And that was extremely important to us, having been working in the technology sector for a really long time, it was evident that we had a lot of issues around inclusion and diversity across all areas of what that means, from gender to inclusiveness on sexual identity to every aspect of that. And neurodiversity was something that we felt very, very critical to success. I've long believed that different perspectives bring opportunities, and by bringing different perspectives and approaches together, it allows us to solve problems for customers and partners in novel ways. And every step of the way here in working with RWA to find the team members that have joined us over our journey over the last couple of years in this program has proven that to be absolute fact. We've even gotten to the point now where customers see our team in a truly inclusive and integrated way as delivering a unique competitive value because of the way that we've built it. And to hear that echoed back to us in meaningful terms about what that value means to our customers, and also on a very, very human level, to see what that means in action as to how that has been, really transformative for people who just needed the chance, the opportunity to succeed, and who have seized that at every moment, every milestone, and taken it to the next level, all the way to what that has meant in terms of how that has helped other team members to develop their empathy muscles, to develop their better listening skills to customers and teammates alike, has been truly incredibly rewarding, but also very transformative for the team at large. So we're thrilled with everything that has come so far, and we're so glad that the folks that have joined our team through RWA are still with us at the 2-year mark, which is phenomenal in and of itself, and how wonderfully far they've come along that way, and how strong that has made us as a team has been really one of the greatest pleasures of being an entrepreneur I could have imagined.
That's great. Thank you so much. So our third panelist is Alex Mandel. Alex is a cloud services engineer at Airgate, employed with Airgate since 2018. Alex has a background in computer programming from Seneca College with a focus on SQL database database maintenance and administration. This is further emphasized through Azure Cloud data management and mitigation. Alex's duties include helping clients move and manage data in Microsoft Azure and building new applications. Alex is certified as an Azure Administrator Associate for Microsoft with an upcoming certificate as an Azure Data Engineer Associate. Alex joins our panel in order to share his experience finding employment and working at Airgate. Alex brings to our panel the perspective of a job seeker and employee with Asperger's syndrome. Alex, can you tell us a bit about your experience in finding suitable employment? Oh, Alex, I think you're still muted.
Sorry. My experience with finding employment in the IT sector was admittedly rather limited. Having only sought out employment previously in more traditional in-person ways, I was unaware of how to proceed with my professional career. At the advice of varying friends and family, I attempted to work with various employment agencies and organizations. And while some were of mixed success, I ended up having success with JVS, or Jewish Vocational Services, which in turn led me to RWA.
Wonderful. So we are now moving on to the question portion. I'm going to ask questions directly to each of our panelists. As a panelist, if you would like to add anything to what another panelist has to say, please feel free. And remember as well, as an audience member attending, if you have a question for any of our panelists or for Ready, Willing, and Able staff, please type it in the question box. It'll be directed to me, and then we're going to get to those questions as well. So my first question is for Alex. Can you tell us a little bit about your employment history prior to working at Airgate?
Sure. So for a bit over a decade during schooling and some time afterwards, I ended up working as a grocery clerk for a small grocery store and primarily stuck with it due to being comfortable and familiar. Admittedly, I'm a bit of a stickler for a routine like that, although there came a point where I actively decided to seek out a change to something more fulfilling and more long-term. Through JVS, I had a 2-month contract as a quality assurance tester for Test Consultants Group, or TCG, before being recruited by Nicole for Airgate through RWA, whom, as stated, I've been with for a bit over 2 years now.
Wonderful. So my next question is for Nicole. Nicole, why did you think working with Ready, Willing, and Able was a good avenue to explore when looking for talent?
So there's really a couple of things that we were drawn to RWA about. One was the focus on neurodiversity, because while we were doing a good job in other areas, we needed to make sure we had the right partner who could help us find the right candidates that also brought the right supports. And so one of the things that was really great as part of the experience was, getting coaching on everything from, that first step of our, I'm not even going to call them interviews, just the first step of meeting prospective candidates and having those dialogues and conversations about what might be possible and how to make each other feel comfortable in that environment, right? Because people who are comfortable, just like in any other HR scenario, are going to do their best, and we're going to see their best and see their potential properly. So sort of throwing out the traditional constructs of how we would go about an interview and really just having a conversation about things that actually mattered. I think we even talked about some science fiction, didn't we, Alex, during that conversation? And then also the supports, right? So once we were onboarding a team member, how to make sure that they were comfortable with the routine, that there was, some coaching provided about stuff, some coaching for our other team members as well was really, really great to have, because we needed to adjust our thought processes. As much as we were extremely motivated to do this, there was still a lot for us to learn about how to properly be inclusive in everything from management practices to team building to how to make sure we were doing the right level of pushing an employee to achieve their best versus when to know not to push, right? So we had to do a lot of learning about how to make sure we were creating the right opportunities. We spent a lot of time coaching our other team members as well, based on guidance from the RWA team, and that was what made us get off to such a successful start and get through those first 3 or 4 months together so that we were on the right trajectory. So that was tremendous and gave us a lot of comfort that we were doing the right thing in the right way, right? Wanting to do something isn't the same as getting it right, and we needed to make sure that everybody was going to be successful. So having RWA was absolutely critical to that success.
That's awesome. I love what you said about adjusting thought process, because I think something that we've seen in working with employers is sometimes it's just, yeah, making those slight changes. And I love what you said as well about with the interview process. We often have seen that that is the biggest barrier towards employment, is just getting through the interview process. So in working together and making those accommodations that's great.
So one thing to add there, Jackie, is everything that we learned about inclusiveness around neurodiversity in that hiring practice has actually made us better at hiring in non-neurodiverse roles, right? So where we have somebody who's much more neurotypical, we actually know how to better have those conversations anyway. So it's made us better by virtue of just doing this in every aspect of the business.
Thank you for saying that. That's so wonderful, and that really is something that we want prospective employers to understand as well. While we are very focused on neurodiversity, a lot of these tips that we share do support in hiring inclusively of other groups as well. So thank you for saying that. So my next question is for Alex. What are some measures that Airgate or Ready, Willing, Enable put in place to help you be successful?
RWA has offered support and connectivity with employers, allowing me to expand my network and contact employers in ways I otherwise wouldn't have been able to on my own. It is the reason I was able to connect with Nicole of Airgate in the first place. Support during the transition process was also provided in order to settle into the workplace and get used to things, basically. As it was a bit jarring of an adjustment initially, I ended up starting part-time, eventually getting used to the flow of things, and before joining full-time a few months down the line. In addition, I am admittedly a significant introvert and considerably sensitive to noise, so an open office environment can be overwhelming at times. Fortunately, there's flexibility available as agreed with my employer in terms of being able to work remotely at times, as well as being able to seek out a quieter side room or office to work at for short periods when overwhelmed. More options and flexibility were available, but in my case, I didn't end up needing to pursue them.
Great, thank you. So my next question is for Carol. How has hiring people with autism spectrum disorder or an intellectual disability impacted the corporate culture within Deloitte?
Sorry, I was on mute. Yeah, thank you so much for asking that question. So I would say employers have, within Deloitte, employers have a better understanding of persons with disabilities, and it's really made our workforce as well as team dynamics more inclusive and accessible for everyone. I would say that hiring managers specifically have provided us feedback in terms of how they've become better managers and leaders by hiring someone with a disability, because they're looking at things from a different perspective, and that has to translate into problem solving and teamwork and working together as a team with these different perspectives, skills, and talents. So we've seen a lot of amazing things come out of hiring people with disabilities. And I would say as an organization, we really pride ourselves on being inclusive, but being inclusive means including people with different perspectives and skills and talents. And we've identified quite a few gaps within our organization, whether that be through technology, infrastructure, accommodations, or even just at this point in time with the COVID pandemic, the technology requirements. And I think this has really helped us grow as an organization and become more inclusive by hiring people with disabilities who have identified these gaps where they might have not been identified before. So I would say we've become a more inclusive organization overall, thanks to hiring people with disabilities, and people within our organization across Canada have had a better understanding of what persons with disabilities go through, what they're like through these education awareness pieces, and then also how they can really adapt their team to be more accessible for everyone. And we've really seen this be really positive throughout our organization, and especially now across Canada as we're operating in a digital environment, we're actually able to spread this message across Canada. And we have about 12,000 employees, so sometimes you're not able to provide that scope, but because we've been able to really spread this message, especially during Accessibility Week, it's been really positive. So.
Yeah, and I think you make a good point there as well, that during the current pandemic, there has been a lot of just because of what's been going on, some accommodations being made that maybe previously weren't being put in place or weren't aware of how easy those things are really to do. And I think what's really struck me as well, and just touching on what you said as well with working with Deloitte, is how proactive about identifying gaps and then responding to those and improving the workplace culture. I think that's a really great thing to share, and definitely something that we've noticed in working with Deloitte.
And I would just add to that, I would say, you know, obviously our partnership has been extremely beneficial for our employees, and just having that awareness where there's individuals within our firm who didn't really understand what it meant to hire someone with a disability, how that process looks like, and now they kind of have a different perspective in terms of the entire hiring process in general, of how to hire people, what the interview process looks like, what's the recruitment process, you know, how do we select candidates, and that has really improved after hiring a few people with disabilities, because we realize there's a whole untapped market out there that we're not necessarily tapping into as much as we could. And there's a lot of skills and talents that could be contributed to different teams across different service lines that we are now identifying today. So overall, it's been very good.
That's great. And yeah, it's certainly working with Deloitte as well. Just like you said, we've been working through various different teams within the organization. So truly all different positions, all different roles that exist within Deloitte. We've been working together to find some great candidates for, which is really awesome. Exactly what we would want. So my next question is for Nicole. Nicole, how has working with Ready, Willing, and Able and hiring inclusively impacted your company in terms of productivity?
So this one is really a great story. I mean, there's lots of great stories about how this has positively impacted us, but you know, at every turn, the team has really embraced this in every way. And what that has resulted in is a reduction in barriers between different team members at large, not just our neurodiverse team members, when it comes to solving the challenges that we have in market. So we're in an extremely competitive market, working on some of the most advanced, fastest moving technology in the world today. And the very success of every project we do for customers is completely hinged on our ability to address those complex scenarios by using different team members' skills and capabilities. And on top of that, every team member needs to actively embrace a culture of learning, a culture of self-advocacy in that learning as well. And so that has just been absolutely naturalized and canonized within our organization. And it's made us exceptionally good, both strategically and tactically, in how we work with our customers. At the same time, it's encouraged individuals to do things that I think they never thought they would be doing themselves, right? So I don't think Alex ever thought he'd be doing a webinar, but you know, he's now confident, absolutely confident in his skills and capabilities in having a consultative, for an introvert, dialogue with a customer, right? And actually providing advisory services to that client based on knowledge and the comfort that knowing that his team is behind him every step of the way. That goes for every member of our team as well. But it's been, you know, an exceptional pleasure to work with individuals who have exceeded their own expectations and far exceeded ours, right, in terms of where they were willing to go and push themselves and what they were able to achieve. to the point where we actually have customers that are saying, hey, we're doing this cool development project for automation and machine learning. Can you make sure you get some of the guys with autism on the project for us, please? Because they think differently about natural language processing. If we're thinking about building tools and applications that are in healthcare that are completely pivotal to communicating between the healthcare worker or the hospital, or these AI experiences, communicating with individuals, people who naturally have to think about how they communicate every step of the day, approach that in a completely different way than those of us that take communication skills for granted because they come that much easier to us, right? So someone who's had to overcome something brings a whole other depth of motivation, of passion, of completeness, of methodical thinking and innovative thinking or critical thinking to a project. And we see that happen in the results, right, of what we deliver. And it's also, so there's a profitability to that. There's a level of excellence value to that in what we deliver and provide to our customers. And most important, there's an extremely rewarding component to the culture as well, because like I said at the beginning, differences of perspective make all of us better. I've learned so much as a human being by having this experience, and every single person in our team has learned something about themselves. They've learned to develop new skills. They've learned to develop different communications muscles, like listening skills. And, realistically, we're almost exclusively, with the exception of one or two people in the organization, a bunch of introverts. We're a bunch of tech nerds and introverts, and we can all learn by working with each other in different ways. And it's, I can look around our organization, and I know if you had each and every one of them here, they would say the same things. Having Alex and other team members who came from RWA in our organization has made every one of us better, and has made us better as a team, and has made us better as an organization. And so, if we can do that as a small company, and it's wonderful to see Deloitte doing this and other organizations at scale as well, there is no reason any company of any size or shape or discipline or industry couldn't find equal success by embracing this. So, we're happy to be here to support, because, the best outcome of all of this is not just what's happened to our team, but if we can see other organizations benefit, and I use that word very, very strongly, benefit from doing this, it makes the best sense to do this. As Carol mentioned, we're tapping into a completely untapped market of talent that is so accretive in value to every other aspect of your hiring practice. I mean, most organizations try and hire all the same people, right? You can walk through an office and it's like, yep, they're all the same, right? They just all have different names, and we need variability in teams today in these skills to build teams that work more effectively together. And I think that, on top of that, there has never been a better time to do this than now, when we have remote working, when accommodations are easier than ever, and when everybody needs to rely on each other for building solutions and solving problems together. We have a lot of problems happening in the world, right? And this pandemic situation is a massive, massive mountain to climb in every industry, and it's going to take every capability and every different type of thought process for success to happen. Every business, every industry needs to reinvent or reimagine what they're doing. And we're all going to need people who think differently to help us get there. So that's what, to me, is the outcome here is we need more people to jump on board and use the amazing capabilities of RWA to find the talent, leverage the talent, and accelerate what comes next for all of us.
Thank you so much, Nicole. I can't imagine saying that any better than you just said. And I think what really struck me as well is that I think what you're explaining is good management. Truly, good managers see potential in their employees and want them to excel and develop. And it's no different of individuals who come through the Ready, Willing, and Able network as well. And good management, those practices allow for organizations to excel and do so well with customers. So thank you so much for all of that. That was wonderful. My next question is for Alex. What impact has working at Airgate had on your life?
It has given me faith in myself as well as my abilities, since a wonderful organization such as this is honestly not something I'd ever foreseen for myself. Given my previous educational background revolves more around traditional programming, and as previously stated, it was primarily around SQL database design and administration, getting into the cloud has been quite the difference in comparison and quite the enlightening learning experience as well. Yet it's still fascinating how such mindsets run in parallel. In addition, the people of the company have overall have been kind, courteous, helpful, fantastic to work with, and quite honestly, it is the best job I've ever had.
Amazing. So my next question, I'm going to direct to Carol, and I'm going to ask you the same question afterwards, Nicole. So Carol, what advice would you give to an employer who is considering hiring someone with autism spectrum disorder or an intellectual disability?
Oh, perfect. I'm unmuted. Yeah, so I think we have a running theme here. I think inclusion is extremely important to an organization to be successful. And I think a big part of inclusion is including people with disabilities. And if you don't include people with disabilities within your organization, you're not a fully inclusive, successful organization. That's truly what I believe. And I think when the job is the right fit for the individual, this creates a mutually beneficial partnership. You know, the employee is able to do a job they enjoy and learn and grow. And in turn, the employer creates a successful, inclusive workforce. And as a business, they're really showing that they can provide different perspectives and create a more positive culture. So I would say, and I think I mentioned this already, the most difficult part, I think, for employers is to start and where to start hiring people with disabilities. And I think most businesses have a deep sense and a deep desire to hire people with disabilities, and it's really moving past that first step. And I would say it is important to identify champions within your organization who have the willingness and desire to hire people with disabilities and change the mindset of individuals who don't necessarily have this. And I think bringing in an organization, for example, like Ready, Willing, and Able, to really start these conversations of education and awareness and really move the needle on hiring people with disabilities and starting to create that discussion around hiring. What are the open positions available? You know, what talent can we bring in? Because the opportunities are endless, the skills are out there. It's more just starting that conversation of moving forward. And we've had a lot of benefit with that, working with Ready, Willing, and Able, because, you know, we've come a long way and we've done some great things, but we still have our journey. We still have quite a journey to go, and we have a lot of work to do. But I would say with Ready, Willing, and Able helping us in that process of educating our employees, first of all, educating your HR employees to understand what that entails, including in your interview practices, you know, strategies to hire, recruitment, it is very important. And then going to the hiring managers and saying, we have all these talent, and, you know, they can be really contributing to your teams and creating diverse teams with different perspectives. So there is a huge amount of benefit to hiring people. It's just moving past that first step. And I would say when we focus on abilities and skills and talent, as opposed to disability, it really changes the perspective, not just for people with disabilities, but for everyone. This is a very beneficial concept. And I think it really creates overall a great culture within the organization. And that's kind of where we need to move to. And we encourage all other companies, and I do this quite often, to consider hiring people on the autism spectrum or with intellectual disabilities, because we've seen a huge benefit within our organization, especially in the last 3 years, hiring people with disabilities, celebrating them, you know, their achievements, making sure that they're able to grow, and then hearing the feedback from our managers. It really creates an amazing environment for everyone, and people start bringing that home. You know, we've had quite a few employees who have some relation to someone with a disability. Everyone has some sort of relation, whether it be a relative or a sibling or a child. There is someone in your life at some point who has a disability, and you can relate to that. And I think with that relatability there, that also provides another dynamic too. So the advice I would give is moving past that wanting to start and moving towards conversations and champions, bringing in organizations like Ready, Willing, Able to start that education and awareness, and really think about the positions that are available within your organization that would benefit and hire somebody, because the talent pool that we've identified is really endless. There are quite a few talents out there, and it's not necessarily specific to one job. And I think it will create a better business because of it.
That's awesome. And I see a question that came through the chat, and I think you really have answered the question. Just someone was asking what you would say to employers who may come back and say, we aren't ready for inclusive employment right now. We have cultural changes. We have some issues we need to work out internally. I know what we typically say to employers is, the only way to know how to create an inclusive workforce is to create an inclusive workforce. And I think that you definitely answered that question as well, where the best thing to do is just kind of start.
And I think, you know, the fear is not knowing when to start. And I think if you don't start, you'll never be ready. And we often talk about this at Deloitte. If we, you know, we hired someone who's partially sighted, this is on a different aspect, but there was a lot of fear-based culture around hiring somebody. And it's really in the sense of not feeling comfortable that they're going to succeed. It's the fear of failure as a manager. And I think just the whole idea is getting past that fear and just starting, because it will never be perfect. It will never be right. But if you never start, you'll never progress. So I think we've identified that. And, you know, once we started to move the process, we just started to go bold and say, let's start everything, because we're going to learn as we move on. And, you know, we're going to hit bumps in the road. But as long as we're willing to commit and really invest in our employees, whether that be with disabilities or not, it creates a great culture regardless. So we've identified that you just have to start, and you may never be ready, you know, so yeah.
Great. So I'm looking at the time as well. So I'm going to ask one more question to Nicole, and then one more question to Alex as well. We have about 4 minutes for that, so just to let everyone know. So the question for Nicole, I'm going to ask the same question I just asked Carol. What advice would you give an employer who is considering hiring someone with autism spectrum disorder or an intellectual disability?
Yeah, I mean, I think this actually applies to every person that you're hiring. Look at the human being. Don't look for skills on a resume. Don't look for educational background. Don't look for any of that stuff. In fact, you know, I've developed an allergy to resumes over the last little bit, as it turns out. So look at the human being. Have a conversation with them. Don't ask them a bunch of questions. Have a conversation. Get to know this person. Get to know, you know, what value they're going to bring to your team, to you, whether you're a manager or an entrepreneur or a leader, and see what the fit is. Because, you know, in our industry, the skills you had yesterday are less important than the skill you're going to have tomorrow, because this is you know, such a fast-moving industry, and every single person is learning at the same pace. So we need to find human beings that have those attributes, that desire. I'll tell you, the one thing I've learned, which has been amazing, is there's nobody more self-actualized about themselves and what they need to succeed than someone who has had to live with not fitting in for one reason or another, okay? And so, you know, as a manager, that's an absolute dream. You mean I have someone that's going to tell me what they want and what they need? That doesn't happen, right? In most traditional manager-employee relationships, there's a lot more friction about getting down to what somebody actually needs to succeed. And it's so much less frictionless in this case. So I would say jump in with both feet, but start small so you can learn and make sure you're adapting the right way. But look at the humans, please. And I think that's true of every type of inclusive hiring. And there's never been a more important time to do it than now.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. So final questions for Alex. Alex, what would you want other employers to know about hiring people with autism?
Ultimately, ASD is just a label, especially given how wide-reaching it is and how much of a spectrum there is. It is more about the individual's abilities, mindset, and determination. Focus on what the person can bring to the table and think about what transferable skills they may have, since it could be surprising what existing abilities have the potential to be translated to something similar, yet different and relevant to the company's needs.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Thank you to all three of you for being part of this and for sharing your experiences and expertise. I think that that was a really good note to end on, and definitely echoes things that were said throughout this as well, that everyone is so different. Look at the individual, and success will be had as a result. So I'm now going to hand it over to Siobhan, or is it Maggie? I think it's Siobhan, to kind of finish this off.
It's to me, but that's okay.
Oh, sorry, Maggie. Sorry.
Maggie. So we just kind of wanted to end off on what we look for in a partner. So a partnership with Ready, Willing, and Able often starts off as a pilot, as Nicole mentioned, to start small, and that's all we want to do, is just to try it out. Many partners start off by just giving us one role to recruit for, and then we build from there. We do not require any signed contracts. We don't set targets. We simply want to work with employers who are open to giving it a try and are committed to inclusion. That's the most important thing for us. In partnering with Ready, Willing, and Able, an employer would reap the business benefits that we shared earlier. They'd have access to promotional and marketing material to promote you are an inclusive employer. So we have like web badges you could put on your website. There are many business and networking opportunities you could take part in. And as Siobhan mentioned earlier, we have a 5-part training course called RWA Works, which is free, which you can access off our website, and you receive a certification after completion. All these things are not mandatory. They're just simply resources that are available if you're interested. And we're closely monitoring the reopening plan for Ontario and are prepared to support businesses in navigating building up their workforce again with strong and reliable people.
So thank you so much to our wonderful panelists today. That was great. And thank you to all of our attendees taking part. I think something that kind of Carol and Nicole, you both touched on, is making sure we match our intentions with our impact, right? That people want to be inclusive, they want to hire in diverse ways. Where do we start? How do we go from here? What's our first step? So I think that's kind of really what we want to drive home, that we can offer other employers that service as well. So with that, we want to invite all of our attendees today watching to follow up with us. So we have our emails on the screens there, or you can reach out to us through the RWA website or our LinkedIn, where you can also find our individual profiles. So we'd be happy to support your company with any of your diversity and inclusion needs, trainings, and then ultimately, hopefully, connect you to the right talent for some of your roles. So thank you so much to everyone who has joined us today, and hope you have a great rest of your day.
You as well. Thank you for having us.
Yeah, that's great. And I'm just looking at the time too. We do have about 5 minutes left.
Yeah,
so
sure.
I'm seeing a couple other questions that have come through the chat box. So since we have a little bit more time, we can address some of those questions that are coming through just very quickly. So one of them, I apologize, I'm just reading through everything as well here. So I'm going to direct one more question to Nicole. Do you have any feedback for customers or clients on your good work in the diversity and inclusion space? So just any other feedback that you wanted to maybe touch on as well.
Well, other than them, specifically asking for some of our team members to be on their projects, most of the feedback just is around the team at large, right? And the fact that they don't see differences in our team. That's the best compliment we could ever get, right? Which is it's all one Airgate team of all awesome people, and collectively they each bring out the strengths that are necessary to help our customers succeed, our clients succeed. So, sometimes we've let people know that, hey, there's going to be somebody with a neurodiverse perspective working on your project. Sometimes we don't. Almost every case they're like, yeah, that's fantastic. And most of the time when we don't tell them, they wouldn't know any different, right? That's the biggest testament we can have to our team, which is they support each other in such a way that, our clients only get more benefit, right? And the feedback is always exceptional on those things. So, that's really what we see happening.
Wonderful. Just looking to other questions that have come through.
I think with the questions that are related to specific roles, feel free to email us directly and we can chat with you about that further. There's a few questions coming in about specific roles that are available, so just get in touch with us and we can chat about it.
Yeah, and a note on that as well with how Ready, Willing, and Able operates, we look to existing opportunities within an organization, and due to the broad pool of candidates, we are able to respond to any need that exists within an organization. So we certainly don't approach specific sectors or specific roles. It's really within a variety of different roles, and that is what's been true within Deloitte even as well. It's been a number of different positions within different teams that exist within the business itself.
So I'm definitely speaking. Oh, sorry. I was just to add to that, Jackie. It definitely kind of adds to what the return to work plan is, right? So things might have been different before. So we want to work with what your needs are now as an employer. So if you have a lot of remote work, if you need virtual interview support, if you need kind of some, tips on how to make sure that your new employees are ready for the new safety and health protocols in place, we want to kind of, or you have one new employee that you're looking for, whatever that looks like for your specific organization, we want to help you kind of with that too. So that would also be kind of specifically kind of tailored to what your unique needs would be.
Absolutely. I think that's a good note to end things on as well. So thank you everyone for joining today. Thank you to our wonderful panelists. I think this was really a fantastic opportunity to take pause and to learn about inclusive employment and how to work to build an inclusive workplace. So thank you again to everyone, and just echoing what was said as well, we'd love to connect with everyone who's attended this as an attendee and see how we could potentially work together. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all.